Hi, in previous video I demonstrated of speaking 12 different languages, and now I'd like to share with you how I learned of these languages. I need to say that everyone has their own comfortable ways of learning languages, so what works for me may not work for you, but here I'll try to find out some of the most general ways. So first, I want to mention that learning a new language needs persistency. Learning a new language is never easy. You have to spend much time on it. So you need to find out the things that keep you afloated. What I mean here is you need to figure out a way to keep yourself moving. Every of us all experience some fulfilling moment in our language learning journey. The moment you find yourself has gone quite a long way, you're amazed how you can understand easily now what the foreign speaker says. So it's important to keep track of your learning trajectories. For me personally, there are three different ways of doing that. First one is notebooks. I have hundreds of notebook record of learning vocabulary. Every time I finish a notebook, I would feel quite accomplished. If you are familiar with CEFR, A1 is the beginner's level and C2 is the native speaker's level. So there are 6 levels at total. And whenever I finish a notebook, I find my level roughly go up 1/3 of a level. So I would mark notebooks A1.1, A1.2, A1.3. So when I finish 3 books, it will go up 1 level. Take an example for Tagalog. I finished about 7 notebooks at total. So my current level is roughly B1.1. The second method I use is Excel sheet. One of the problems I find with notebook system is that I cannot quickly find the word I'm looking for. But with Excel sheet, you can just search it and it'll pop up right away. I always find this simple operation amazing. And with Excel sheet, you can also arrange the words you learned alphabetically. It's a very good way of reviewing them. And the third method I'm using to keep track of my learning trajectories is Anki. I think many people know that it's a flashcard app to help you retain the vocabulary through a scientific way. In academic research, there's a concept called forgetting curve. The forgetting curve explains how memory fades so quickly after learning, especially if we don't practice or review what we learned. And Anki helps us to review vocabulary. Interestingly, the word Anki originates from a Japanese word Anki, which means to memorize. Also, Anki allows us to set different parameters to optimize our learning. So to wrap it up briefly, I use notebooks, Excel sheet, and Anki to keep track of learning. Now we're moving to the next part. I like to call it anchor. For each language you learn, I would suggest you to find a strong anchor, the reason why you learned it. For example, the reason I learned Burmese is because I think their writing is very beautiful. Those circles like glasses, and I find it very cool if I'm able to read them. I know it sounds a little bit silly, but this anchor kept me learning many years of Burmese. I know the anchor for many people who learn Japanese is anime, and the anchor for learning Korean is K-pop or K-drama. So as long as the reason that keeps you from giving up a language is a good anchor. For another example, the reason why I learned Tagalog is that I want to understand the poor kids living in the garbage dumps. Does this sound more decent than Burmese? I hope so. So were it not for this reason, I would have given up learning Tagalog since, most educated Filipinos are very good at English and the grammar of Tagalog, so-called the focus system in Austronesian languages are really daunting. I'm still struggling with that. And also, anchor can be a single person. It might be a good friend of yours or a person you admire. So now so far we touched on keeping records and anchor. The last part I want to talk about is diversity. Learning language is never just taking class or reading books or learning grammar or memorizing new vocabularies. You have to diversify your source of input. Every language has many aspects of its own, so with different languages you have to come up with different methods. For example, I find reading is quite helpful for me to improve my English, but that's not the case with Burmese and Tagalog. For their gaps between written and spoken languages are way much bigger than English. As a result, what you learn from reading may not be applicable in everyday use. People may not understand. So I mainly rely on YouTube or TikTok videos to learn those languages. And about novelty, since we as humans have an affinity of new fresh things, I would recommend you always try new different ways of learning new languages, different kinds of way for memorizing or learning grammar. It's just unnecessary to just stick to a single method. So be open and be creative. So today we talked about 3 main principles to help you remain persistent, which are keeping records, anchors, and diversity. Next time, I'd like to talk about methodology, some of the learning techniques to help me learn more efficiently. So thank you for watching. See you next time.